In this section, I will show you how to survey a point using RTK by receiving corrections from a base station via UHF radio. First, in home screen, I click Settings, and in Settings screen, I click GNSS. On the top row, I check all satellite systems, although Galileo, QZSS, and SBAS do not contribute anything until more of them are launched. Then I click Receive Data Rover button. I want to receive corrections from UHF, so I click the UHF button, and here select RTK CMR Plus format, which is the format of the data that my base station transmits. And I click Apply. This will turn on my UHF radio automatically. Transmit Data Base button is for when we want to set up Triumph VS as a base station, which is not my case now. I only click to verify no data transmission is programmed. In RTK, I don't have to record raw GNSS data, but it is a good practice to record raw GNSS data at base station and at every rover for safety, to be able to post-process data and to double-check your work in case you need to. So I click Record Data and select JPS format to be recorded on both SD card and in internal memory. I also select the period for both at 1 Hertz. As I said earlier, in our work today, we plan to receive RTK corrections from our own base station using UHF radio. In another session, I will show you how to use VRS networks for RTK. Next, I click Elevation Mask and select 15 degrees. Thanks to many GPS and GLONASS satellites, we can do this and have enough satellites above 15 degrees elevation mask. Next, I click Duration and select Manual Operation to stop the operation myself. I will uncheck the Lift and Tilt and Auto Repeat boxes. We will discuss them in another section. I also select 5 seconds of delay, which causes the operation to start 5 seconds after I click the Start button in the action screen, as we will see later. I will keep Reject In-band Interference unchecked. We will discuss this one later too. Next, I click Accept Position Results of. My objective is to accept only RTK fixed solutions in my real-time position calculations. So I select this option. Further details of accuracy depends upon the number of available satellites, existence of multipath, and how long I will keep the operation going. Note that raw GNSS data will always be recorded during the operation, irrespective of the type of position that Triumph VS is able to achieve in every second. I click Apply, and we'll go back to the GNSS settings. And apply again to get to the Settings menu. In here, I click Communications and click UHF. Here I want to set the UHF frequency and protocol to what my base station is transmitting. I click Frequency, and if the frequency that I need is not listed, I click Add to enter a new frequency. In frequency screen, I need to find it, and the frequency appears on the top left sections. Then I will click Apply. My base station transmits Javad protocol, so I click and I make sure that modulation is set to DQ-PSK, channel spacing of 25, and FEC and scrambling boxes are checked to match with the UHF settings of my base station, and click apply. Back to action screen. Next item is actions. I click the action button and select point survey. Next is photo and voice button. I click, and for bottom camera, I select none, as I don't want to take any picture from the bottom camera. For front camera, I select take pictures one time at the start and select to record it on SD card only. For record voice, I select to record voice for 15 seconds and record it only in SD card. This will take the microphone open for 15 seconds after I click the start button of action screen, as we will see later. I don't want to record the spectrum of in-band interferences in this section, so I click to ensure that record period is set to none. Next, I click the mounting method. I plan to use a monopod, put its tip on the mark, and I want Triumph VS to correct for my vertical leveling, so I don't have to keep it exactly vertical. I will check both correct by levels and correct by compass. With these settings, Triumph VS will correct when I'm tilted up to 5 degrees. It will discard data when I'm off more than 5 degrees and will alarm me. Next, I click antenna to enter my antenna height and specify that it's vertical and not slant. If we connect external antenna to Triumph VS, it will automatically be used. We can specify the external antenna type here if we use it. I don't plan to connect external antenna, and the other two buttons are not for survey applications, and I will skip them for now. Next item is RTK DGBS settings. We normally use corrections every second. If we lose communications momentarily, we can extend the use of corrections to get RTK solutions until we get new corrections. The accuracy of RTK corrections degrades with the age of corrections at the rate of about few centimeters per minute. Here, I specify to use corrections for up to 10 seconds. In RTK GPS rate, I specify rate of 1 Hertz, and in max satellite box, I specify to use the best 15 and click apply. I will skip units as they are self-explanatory, also skip advanced as we don't need to change anything for our RTK survey of today. Next is save settings. We did a lot of work in setting up our Triumph VS. We will have different settings for different types of works, so we better be able to save and recall different settings. To do this, I click Save Settings and click Save New and enter a name. The first 3 letters will appear under the Settings menu on the top of the screen. Then I click Done. As you see here, the first 3 letters that we entered for settings shows in the bottom of the settings screen, as was the case for the map name. Now our settings are done and we are ready for action. Before we start, I want to emphasize some other important issues. In home screen, click System and click Receiver Name and enter a name for your receiver. In here again, the first 3 letters will appear under the satellites icon on top of the screen. This is important for you to identify receivers, and when you communicate with us via Triumph VS, we can see the name and communicate with you. We will discuss this subject later. In system screen, there is calibrate compass. Every time that your environment changes, calibrate compass. This will take about 24 seconds. Also, every week or so, calibrate levels. This will take about 3 seconds. On the system page, clicking the version, you can see the software and hardware versions installed in your Triumph VS. Now we are ready to go to Field and start action. Click Action button, which is the middle hardware key button on the left side of the screen. We will cover the action screen in the next section.